In today's video, we'll be looking at the first topic in GCSE Classical Civilization, Myth and Religion, which is the gods in Greek and Roman religion. So we're going to start with some key terms that you might be asked about on the exam paper. The first is iconography, which are symbols attached to a particular character when represented in an image. Hera, which is the Greek name for religion, and it means holy affairs. And religio, which is the Roman name for religion and where we get the English term religion, and it means the correct worship of the gods. So these are slightly different terms, and I think one of the most important things to note is that we need to understand the nuances in the differences between Greek and Roman religion. More key terms: polytheism, the belief in many gods; anthropomorphism, attributing human form or characteristics to something that is otherwise not human; and an epithet, an adjectival word or phrase regularly added to a name to denote a personal or physical quality. And if you study the Odyssey, then you'll be very familiar with this term. So the nature of Greek and Roman religion. Both of Greek and Roman religions revolve around action. The gods had to be physically worshipped by performing sacrifices and making offerings, and these could either be in private, in the home, or they could be public and sort of state-organized sacrifices and offerings. Greek and Roman religion was polytheistic. They had hundreds of different gods and goddesses, each with their own unique skills. And in this video and in the Classical Civilization GCSE, we'll be focusing on the Olympian gods. The gods are also anthropomorphic, and this explains the relationship between humans and gods, as gods have the ability to feel human emotions, for example, sadness. They can also be generous and selfish. The gods had to be correctly worshipped so that the humans could gain their favour. And they would often refer to the gods with an epithet, which would be used to describe a quality or skill that the god or goddess had, and they would use this to appeal to this trait in their worship. So, for example, a sailor might sacrifice to Poseidon, the earth shaker, to ensure that his voyage might be safe. So now we'll be looking very briefly at the differences in general between Greek and Roman religion. Roman religion had both Greek and Etruscan influences, so the differences we see between them are often because of this Etruscan influence. The Etruscans were a tribe to the north of Rome, and they inhabited Italy before the foundation of Rome in 753 BC. And the Etruscan religious practices influenced Roman temple design and divination. And of course, Roman religion was also influenced by the Greeks, or the Hellenes. The Hellenes is a collective name for people who spoke Greek and shared religious customs, either from Greece or Magna Graecia, which was the Greek-speaking area in southern Italy, and Greek religion influenced Roman religious ideology. So the first god we'll be looking at is Zeus, and you can see a picture of a statue of him. He is often depicted with a beard, lightning, with an eagle on a throne with a scepter, and as we can see in the picture, he's got the beard and he's got lightning. They don't always have all of these attributes depicted with them, but that's how you can recognize them in an exam, and that's what an examiner will be looking for. His role was the king of the gods, the god of the sky and of thunder, of justice, fate, and Xenia is guest friendship. He features in the Iliad and the Odyssey fulfilling these kinds of roles. And in Rome, his name was Jupiter or Jove, and the name Jove comes from the Etruscan god Jove Pater, which means father love. And in Rome, his main temple was the temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus on the Capitoline Hill. The next god is Poseidon, and he is often shown with a beard and a trident, as you can see on the right here. His role is the god of the sea, the god of storms and earthquakes, and he features in the Iliad, where he sides with the Greeks, as the Trojans never paid him for rebuilding their city. He also features very heavily in the Odyssey, as he is the god that pursues Odysseus after Odysseus blinds Poseidon's son, Polyphemus the Cyclops, and he also features in the contest for Athens. His Roman name is Neptune, and in Roman religion, he has an additional role. He's linked with horses, which makes him an important deity to sailors, traders, and travellers. The next god we'll be looking at is Hades, and he is often depicted with the cornucopia, the horn of plenty, or his wife Persephone. In the picture on the right, he's also depicted with Cerberus, the three-headed dog of the underworld, so watch out for that as well. His role is that he's the king of the underworld. He's a chthonic deity, and a chthonic deity is one associated with earth and the underworld, and he's also a god of the dead. He features very little in stories, except in the Homeric hymn to Demeter, where he abducted Demeter's daughter Persephone. And in Rome, his name is Pluto, and he features more heavily in Roman stories. For example, he has a brief appearance in Ovid's Metamorphoses in the story of Orpheus and Eurydice, and he is also depicted on Roman sarcophagi, and a sarcophagus is a stone coffin with sculpture on it. Next is Hera, and she is often depicted with a diadem, which is a kind of crown. She is the queen of the gods, the goddess of marriage, of women, of family, and childbirth, and she is often represented as a powerful, independent goddess who is not to be crossed, and we can see this in all the stories that she features in. So, for example, in the Iliad, she opposes Troy due to Paris not choosing her in the beauty contest for the golden apple. And she also features in the myth of Heracles, where she takes revenge on Heracles incessantly, as he is the offspring of one of Zeus's affairs with a mortal. In Rome, her Roman name is Juno, and she is also often depicted holding a scepter and with a peacock. Athena is often depicted with an owl, a helmet, a spear, an aegis, or Nike, who is the goddess of victory. Her role is being the goddess of war strategy, which makes her quite different to Mars, who we'll look at later, but is more the god of war on the battlefield, with wisdom, and also she's the goddess of handicraft. She features in stories such as the birth of Athena, the contest of Athens, and she is the supporting deity of Odysseus in the Odyssey. In Rome, her name is Minerva, and she does not have as much of an association with war as she does in Greek religion. It is more, Mars is more the god of war in Roman religion. Demeter is often depicted with a diadem, with wheat, grain or flowers, and she's the goddess of the harvest, of agriculture, grains, and the fertility of the earth, which is really important for the Greeks as they depended on the harvest for their survival. She features in the Homeric hymn to Demeter, where her daughter Persephone was taken by Hades. And there was a mystery cult to Demeter called the Eleusinian Mysteries, which was dedicated to her. And in Rome, she had the name Ceres, and she was particularly important to lower class Romans called the plebeians or the plebs, who relied on grain and bread. And she had a temple on the Aventine Hill, and there was an annual festival to her in Rome called the Cerealia. Next is Hestia. She is often depicted with a veiled head, as we can see in the image on the right, and she is the goddess of the hearth, of family, of home, and every sacrifice made in the home was preceded with an offering to Hestia, so she was very important. Her Roman name was Vesta, and she was particularly key to Roman religion, as her worship and her rites were key to Rome's survival. There was a sacred flame burning in Rome, and that had to be kept burning, otherwise Rome would fall, was the myth surrounding her sacred flame. And she had her own priesthood, the Vestal Virgins, and her own temple complex in Rome. Next is Hephaestus, who is often depicted with a hammer. He is the god of blacksmiths, of craftsmen, sculptors, fire, volcanoes, and his parents are up for debate in different sources. So in Homer's Iliad, his parents are said to be Zeus and Hera, but Hesiod says that Hera bore him on her own to rival Athena's birth from Zeus. He also walked with a limp, and this is perhaps when Zeus threw him off Olympus in one version of the story, or perhaps he was born with this limp. In Rome, his Roman name is Vulcan, and there was a festival, the Vulcanalia, every year to him in Rome, and he was also more associated with industry in Rome, which made him a particularly important deity. Aphrodite is often depicted rising from a seashell and naked. She is the goddess of love, of beauty and passion, and she features in the Homeric hymn to Demeter, in which Homer describes that no one except Athena, Hestia, and Artemis, who are the virgin goddesses, can resist her influence. And she's also in the story of the golden apple, which I mentioned earlier, to do with Hera, and she is the one that wins the beauty contest, and that means that she supports the Trojans in the Trojan War in the Iliad. Her Roman name is Venus, and she has an increased importance in Rome, as she is the mother of the founder of the Roman race, Aeneas, and she is also often depicted with her son Cupid. Artemis is often depicted with a bow and arrow and wild animals, as we can see on the right. She is the goddess of the hunt, of wilderness, of wild animals, the moon, chastity, and she is the twin of Apollo. Her Roman name is Diana, and in Rome, she had a temple and shrine on the Aventine Hill, which was created by the 6th king of Rome, Servius Tullius, who was born a slave. Therefore, the cult of Diana in Rome gained a huge following from the poor and slaves. Apollo, this is Artemis's twin, and he is often depicted with a bow and arrow, a lyre, which is a small Greek harp, and he is shown in eternal youth. He is the god of archery, of music, dance, healing, prophecy, truth, the sun, poetry, and this range shows the importance of Apollo. He had cult centres in Delphos, where he is said to have been born, and the oracle at Delphi was dedicated to him, and this oracle was the biggest oracle in the Greek world. And just to clarify, an oracle is an often ambiguous or obscure utterance given by a priest or priestess said to be speaking the words of a god. In Rome, his name is also Apollo because there is no Etruscan alternative, and he is Augustus's favoured god, who built a temple to him on the Palatine, and he favoured Apollo after his victory at the Battle of Actium against Mark Antony. The next god is Hermes, who is often depicted with a traveller's cap, a caduceus, which is a traveller's staff associated with him, and we can see that in this statue. He is the messenger of the gods, and the only god apart from Dionysus who is allowed in the underworld. He's the god of messengers, of travellers, thieves, and merchants. In Rome, his name is Mercury, and there is a separate worship to him in Rome where there will be small votive statuettes of Mercury in the house's Lalarium, which was a small shrine to household gods in all Roman houses. Next is Ares, who is depicted in armour. He is the god of courage, of war, violence, which is opposed to Athena, who is the goddess of war strategy. Also, he is the god of brutality and bloodlust, and in the Iliad he is described as a merciless killer. His Roman name is Mars, and he is also associated with agriculture. He also has an increased importance in Roman religion, as he is the father of Romulus, who was the founder of Rome, and there is an area outside Rome where the army would train and assemble before going to war, and that was named after him, the Campus Martius, not the Campus Marius, that's Matius. And finally, Dionysus. He is often depicted with a thyrsus, which is a staff, with vines, with an animal skin maybe, and with his companions, the satyrs and the maenads. Satyrs are promiscuous half-man, half-goat followers of Dionysus, and maenads are Dionysus's female followers. He is the god of grape harvest and winemaking, fertility, orchards and fruit, insanity, festivity and theatre. And he could also travel to the underworld, given that he was half mortal. He is the son of Zeus and the Theban mortal Semele. His worship included the city Dionysia in Athens, which is also covered in the Myth and Religion section of Classical Civilisation GCSE, and he had a mystery cult. And his Roman name is Bacchus, and the festival Bacchanalia was introduced from Greece to Rome around 200 BC. And he also had a mystery cult in Rome, but as Rome feared rebellion from the cult members meeting in secret, the mystery cult was banned around 186 BC. So we're just going to go through a quick recap of the terms mentioned in connection with these gods, just in case you may be asked to define these in the exam. Chthonic is relating to gods associated with the earth and underworld. A sarcophagus is a stone coffin with sculpture on it, A mystery cult is a cult in which all practices were kept secret, so we do not know exactly or at all what happened in them. A caduceus is a traveller's staff associated with Hermes. A lalarium is a small shrine to household gods in all Roman houses. A thyrsus is a staff associated with Dionysus, topped with a pine cone and intertwined with ivy. A maenad is a female follower of Dionysus. A satyr is a promiscuous half-man, half-goat attendant of Dionysus, and one which I haven't put on here but would probably be useful to know is an oracle, as we talked about, an often ambiguous message coming through a priest or priestess. Supposedly it was the message of a god or goddess. So we'll just quickly look at a specimen paper question. This was the first question on the specimen paper, and they would give you a source booklet, so look at this source, and then you need to answer these questions. So go ahead and pause the video, examine the source, think of an answer, and then come back and I will show you the mark scheme. So this is the mark scheme for this past paper question. Hopefully, as we have talked about, there are some characteristic signs of the gods and goddesses. So we can see the god on the right holding a hammer, and we can see the god on the left holding a lightning bolt, although it's not entirely clear. I wouldn't say that that is a lightning bolt, but you could also say that Athena is emerging from his head, so it must be Zeus. And then the second question, we have Athena emerging from Zeus's head, and then the exam asks you to describe the contest of Athens. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it was helpful.